Welcome to Business Now, your trusted show on economic trends and policy shifts across East Africa and beyond. I'm Malcolm Sime, and on the program today, Uganda's national budget for the financial year 2025-26 has just been read under the ambitious theme full monetization of the Ugandan economy through commercial agriculture, industrialization, expanding and broadening services, digital transformation and market access. But is it a pro-people budget, and where will real growth come from? In the first half of the show, we will speak to Ssegwaya, the Chief Financial Officer at Absa Bank Uganda, on the budget's implications for credit markets, private sector participation, and inclusive growth from a banking industry perspective. Then, in the second half, we zoom out to regional trade, where border bottlenecks, non-tariff barriers, and fragmented infrastructure continue to slow down progress. We'll be joined by the Country Director of Trademark Africa to unpack the state of the intra-EAC and intra-Africa trade, how women are shaping the cross-border economy, and what's being done to make trade work better, especially at the front lines. A deep dive into budget economics and border economies, all in just 20 minutes. Stay with us. First, before we cross over to the details, Absa Bank Uganda has unveiled its latest campaign, It's Your Turn Joga 2025, designed to support individuals like you and businesses in reaching their 2025 goals. And these initiatives have solutions including car loans of up to 600 million, salary loans of up to 300 million, and small and medium enterprise loans of up to 200 million shillings, with all competitive terms and repayment holidays. You can reach out to your nearest Absa Bank branch and talk to them and make your dreams come true.
For me, the reflection looking at the incidents or the events of this year is to say we need to come home. Because if we don't change, the changes around the world may swallow us.
One of the things we're just working on now is how to ensure that Uganda can actually start trading under the AfCFTA.
Well, let's now take a look at three top business headlines for the week beginning June 16th, spanning global markets, Africa, and sector-specific developments. And we start off with Jumia, which is rebuilding investor trust, often dubbed the Amazon of Africa. Jumia is on the recovery path with an ambitious plan to reach profitability by 2027, after slashing annual losses from $206 million to a projected $50 to $55 million in the year 2025. The CEO is tightening cost control, consolidating operations, and tapping Chinese merchants to make up 1/3 of its sales. Major orders expected at 2025 Paris show despite global tensions. The 2025 Paris Air Show kicked off with optimism as Airbus edges towards a significant order from Saudi Arabia and carriers for up to 108 220 jets. Meanwhile, Boeing is taking a cautious approach amid ongoing supply chain bottlenecks and the United States tariff uncertainty. This is Business Now, and welcome once again. Uganda's financial year 2025-2026 budget, totaling 72.1 trillion shillings, sets out to unlock economic potential through full monetization of key sectors like agriculture, industry, and services. But what does this mean in practical terms for credit, financial access, and private sector growth? In this segment, Absa Bank Chief Financial Officer Ssegwaya, who's also the Executive Director, offers a banking industry perspective on whether the budget is truly pro-people and where the next wave of economic momentum could come from.
We are all aware what happened at the beginning of the year. There's a titanic shift that's happening on the global stage. With what Trump announced, there's a shift for most countries to start taking care of themselves. What that actually means is we need to start taking care of our business. And that's fundamental. The knee-jerk reaction from any government would be just go and collect. But I think looking at the budget, there were initiatives that were stimulating businesses to formalize. When you are asking people to come and register for tax purposes and alleviate income tax take out stamp duty for mortgages. I think that's a step in the right direction to try and ensure that we can grow more business, we can see the country produce more. And I think for me those are initiatives that we ought to have from a collection perspective. Now, the current environment is tough, but I think there is still room if you're to look at some of the tax collections GDP ratios around the region. So that's where the opportunities are. And for us as Absa, that's why we come up with the initiatives to sensitize people, to say this is what is at stake. How do we work together to ensure that we remain in business? That was my take, but I should say it's a fair budget based on the circumstances we are in and the changes that are happening on a global stage.
How best do you think government can internally hedge or protect itself against global shocks, the risks that the central bank also talks about often in its reports?
I think for me the reflection looking at the incidents or the events of this year is to say we need to come home. How best can we be productive? What can we change? Because if we don't change, I mean the changes around the world may swallow us. The impact of oil, care of the war, or so many other things, yes, are going to come and bite us. But how best do we utilize the environment, the weather conditions that we have in Uganda? How best can we be productive? And for me, that's where the challenge is. How best can we try and formalize and push, if we are the food basket, can we push that to the region? For me, that's how I see it. And it's all factors coming into place, whether it's the banks, support from government, infrastructure, all that has to be in place to try and ensure that we make the world a better place.
What have you got to say to businesses this time around? Do you think the cost of money is coming down, or do you think it's still up? Don't you think 17% is still up?
We actually seeing more pressure in terms of our margins to try and ensure that we are competitive. I should say, if you're looking at the holistic numbers on average, interest rates have gone down. In other scenarios, it would be the other way around. If you look at the region, it is probably the other way around.
How do we compare the region?
Oh yes, we have interest rates in some countries to the tune of 30, 20 something percent on average. How do you do business in such a country? Okay, you have inflation 20% or so if you're looking at the likes of Ghana, Zambia, and what they have gone through.
Do you think businesses will still bank, and do you think you'll still make huge profits that you posted?
I want to encourage everybody who can borrow and are assured of revenues. You know, I'm not just talking about just borrowing. The budget is telling us there's a waiver on stamp duty. That is an incentive. They are losing something to grow something. Okay? Now, I'm not just talking about borrowing for borrowing's sake, because those are factors of production to try and drive revenues. And that's what the budget side can do. Where are we going to get business? I think the fact that the general banking industry has continued to post, we are seeing quite a number of fintechs and even some of the other businesses post some good records across, is a reflection of what is actually happening in certain pockets of this economy. I want to say it's not all doom and gloom. There are opportunities. The question is how best can we plug into these opportunities. When you look at some of the developed markets, there is a mechanism where they pick the people at the bottom of the pyramid and probably give them some housing allowance of sorts, some incentives. It is one way of ensuring that you have social stability. I think whereas that is being done for Uganda and the challenges we have to try and facilitate social stability, I like the fact that there's a focus to try and ensure that the money is productive.
We're also going to dive into the highlights of the post-budget dialogue for this financial year. For the next financial year, the Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, Ramadan Gobi, who also serves as the Secretary to the Treasury, stated that Uganda is on a mission to transform its destiny. He emphasizes the country's goal of achieving 500 billion Uganda shillings, US dollars, I beg your pardon. The economy set to hit those targets by 2040, a tenfold increase from its current level. Now, the Permanent Secretary made these remarks during the NTV Absa post-budget dialogue held at the Serena Hotel on Friday. And then let's see more of what happened at that event.
Our credit has grown double digit, so we are clearly doing more to ensure that the economy grows. And when you also look at the compliance, the growth in the tax expectation, I think URA is expected to grow by about 14% in tax revenue collection. Our GDP is growing at 6%. So clearly compliance is going to be key. And for us as banks, if you are formalized, you're getting that income, revenues coming through, there are opportunities for credit. And as Absa, that is why we do these programs, such that we're able to sensitize the masses. We grow together.
In 1995, coffee was contributing 66%, 2/3 of our export earnings. Today, with that big amount of money we are getting from coffee, it is contributing 14% of our export earnings. Why? Because we've diversified, and that's how you will get money in the pockets of so many people if you diversify and also mitigate risk. That no single item in Uganda can be hit and the economy comes to a standstill, like it is done in some other places, which I don't want to mention. So, to answer you, in order for us to get money to the pockets of people is to ensure that we diversify the opportunities for them, not to rely on only coffee and gold and cows, and we need to get in a new economy.
Uma talked about the reduction in the tariffs of power. Government has also gone ahead to grant an exemption to Bujagar Energy Company, which also means that this also continue limiting the increase in tariffs for electricity. The removal of stamp duty from mortgages and agreements. You are aware this has been a hindrance to access to credit, like it has been mentioned here. Because every time you got a loan through a mortgage, 0.5% of the value of that mortgage was stamp duty. Any form of agreements, any form of contracts you entered into, there's a stamp duty that was paid on each copy of that agreement. All this has been removed. And again, government is trying to promote businesses, allow them to have access to credit, and lower the cost of doing business in Uganda.
Now, while Uganda's budget leans heavily on market access and regional integration, many structural and regulatory barriers still show down cross-border trade. In this segment, we speak to Anna Mboze, the Country Director of Trademark Africa, on the current state of East African integration, the outlook for intra-Africa trade and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the targeted results in areas, support to women traders, and streamlining operations at border posts. Financial markets will be up next.
So when we're talking about the women traders, usually we're referring to the small-scale cross-border traders. These are people who are already located in the border communities at Busia, at Malaba, at Mutukula, at Elegu. Okay, we are looking at them, and why we as Trademark Africa have really focused to uplift these ladies is because they get into trade out of necessity. Not because they've gone to school and they see that this is the best product to trade in or anything like that, but out of necessity. They're looking after our families, their neighbors trading something, they're getting some money, they see a better life, they also get into it. Next season, they're probably going to trade a different commodity. So what we have done over the years is, one, to help them sort of formalize. And this semi-formalization is really just to be able to come together as a group, women based on their community. Once they come together as a group, then they're registered as an association or a circle. This has helped us to be able to impart any knowledge on entrepreneurship, on bookkeeping, on just market information through the groups. One of the things we're just working on now is how to ensure that Uganda can actually start trading under the AfCFTA mechanisms. We're working with the Ministry of Trade on that and other partners again as well. But you will see, apart from just the fact that you're going to have the policy environment, you also need to be ready. You will recall that over the last 2 years, we've seen Southern Africa, you mentioned Zambia, looking for food because they've had all these climatic droughts and heavy floods come in and destroy their food. They looked for maize in Uganda. The only reason we couldn't supply to them is because our maize quality did not meet their standard. Okay, so we need to improve standards. So then you have different programs that are going out to be able to have good agronomy practices, to have post-harvest practices, to ensure that you have warehouses that fit the standards that are required, to ensure that your grain is good throughout and can reach the market. So there's different levels that you have to play at that all come in. I think as with trade, it's not a one sector thing, it's different sectors that have to be looked through. We've taken a two-pronged approach to it. We've worked with the Bureau of Standards to help them, first of all, to decentralize. Before 2022, every time you need a UNBA certification, whether you're coming from Barara for your milk or your yogurt, or from the east, you'd have to come to Kampala. What we did is we set up 3 regional laboratories, the first one in Gulu, the second one in Mbale, and then the third one in Barara. This has brought down, it has helped the business people, especially those who are already trading, to be able to access the services much closer. You can imagine how many times you'd have to travel back and forth across the country to come to Kampala. Now it's within your locality. I know in Barara it's still not, if you're in Fort Portal, maybe a bit far, but it's probably closer than coming to Kampala, So it has helped to break down the time that it takes and also the cost, because every time somebody has to travel with these products, and even how you're traveling, how you're transporting them, some of them have to be cooled, the cost of it alone has also reduced. So the time has reduced and the cost has reduced. Okay, so iSoko, which I is basically internet, Soko is from Sokoni market. Yes, sure. So Sokoni, the iSoko platform was launched in 2023 here in Uganda, and we have it in 5 East African countries: Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi. Right now, since it was launched in 2023, about May, we have about over 100,000 users in all these countries that are utilizing the platform. What does it help with? Again, as we said, market information, number 1. And this platform actually was first designed for women, because we went ahead to see what the problems are that you asked earlier. And then we said they need a platform. But of course, with inclusivity, the youth, the men, everybody's for it. It's an online platform, it has no restrictions. So once you have a phone with internet, but it also has a USSD, or you can use a computer, you can take a picture of your produce, what you sell, upload it onto the platform, and then the other traders within the East African countries can see what it is that you have. Or even within Uganda, we have traders in the East and traders in the West communicating and trading with each other through the platform. The platform gives you market information. You can be able to get the pricing of the products. What we've not yet done in Uganda is the actual sending of money on the platform, because then you use mobile money and any other products.
Join us next time for another edition of Business Now, and for updates, follow us on X. So you can follow me at Malcolm Sime and our youth YouTube channel in case you want to see this program again. Don't forget, Absa Bank Uganda has unveiled its latest campaign, It's Your Time to Ssegwaya 2025, designed to support individuals and businesses in reaching your goals this year, 2025. The initiative offers tailored solutions, including loans of up to 600 million, 300 million, and 200 million. That's for a business, school fees, or you want to buy a car. Reach out to your Absa Bank branch and make sure your dreams come true.